Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Trading the Markets. Of course, we're joined by Kris Bullock, aka Blastoplast. This is the show where we talk about the weekly trends in the markets, talk about any trades that we're considering, and of course, take your questions live. So if you have any questions, please drop them into the live chat on X or on platform, and we will get to as many as we can. Speaking of platform, just today we had a sneak peek drop on about Real Vision 3.0. Our engineering team walks you through the changes that are coming and how this is really going to supercharge the RV hive mind. So definitely check that out. Something's coming and it's coming soon. And speaking of a lot of things that are coming, Real Vision and actually the Connect here has released quite a bit of content. Joe Bland and Kris released their reports last week. And Kris actually just yesterday released a video on how to gauge crypto projects value. He kind of walks you through about what he looks for when looking at other projects and protocols, and kind of the charts and the indicators that he uses that make him identify a good trade or something that he wants to get into. So Kris, happy Wednesday. How are you doing? What are the markets telling us this week?
Yes, doing well, thank you. I wanted to start by just kind of reiterating one thing I talked about on our Monday show, which is the Bitcoin dominance seasonality. And so the reason for that is because Bitcoin dominance seasonality actually peaks, or not peaks, but it has its best month in October. And so let's look at the chart first. So we know this is Bitcoin dominance on the weekly time frame. We know Bitcoin dominance has likely peaked. It likely peaked back here in the June time frame. It has broken this major weekly trend that it had been in for the entirety of this 4-year cycle, basically. And it has sort of rebounded a little bit. It has bottomed, and that makes sense. Nobody's expecting it to just drop like a rock necessarily. So this isn't too surprising to see. But I do think overall the trend will continue to the downside. But if we look at the seasonality matrix, which I'm going to pull up here, you've probably seen these before. This basically just shows this is basically the months across the top and the years on the side. And what we're seeing here, these green months, and it's showing here that typically October, in terms of Bitcoin dominance, now not Bitcoin price, but Bitcoin dominance specifically, is the highest in the month of October. So I said on the Monday show that we're likely to see Bitcoin run for a little bit and Bitcoin kind of lead the broader market. And I think we're starting to see that in the moment. I think that what that means is Bitcoin will outpace the broader alt market, but there will be some alts that will continue to do well over these 3 to 4 weeks. And then I think, as we sort of wane into the latter stages of this month and come into, November and December, then I think the alts will sort of take over from there. And we do see that here reflected in this seasonal pattern too. We see, basically a 90% increase typically in October, but then a 20% decrease in November and a 40% decrease in September or December. And then if we look at others' dominance, kind of the opposite of that, we see kind of, again, the opposite. We typically see a decrease in October and then steady increases in alts in November and December. So this is kind of what I'm looking at, and this is sort of setting the tone for all of the price action that I'm sort of weighing and analyzing over the next month. And we are seeing that in the price action. We are seeing Bitcoin basically do well. I mean, obviously it set a new all-time high just a few days ago. It is resetting at the moment. It kind of is mean reverting back to its 10-day moving average. It got a little bit over its skis. It was pretty overextended and pretty deviated from the moving average we see here. So not at all surprised to see it kind of come back and retouch this. But my bias remains to the upside. I want to look at another chart here. So I do think that it's possible. There's a couple things that I'm looking at here. I see we did get sort of rejected basically at this all-time high level effectively. Yes, it did poke a new high, but it came back down. It's currently sitting just above the 10-day moving average. I do think that even though my bias remains to the upside, even though I do think that we've still got probably a good 2+ weeks of decent upside action before any real sort of cooling period, I do think in the short term it's possible we come back down to this breakout level here at around 118 to maybe even 120. And the reason I say that is because I'm looking at the like liquidation heat maps, and I do see a good concentration of liquidity at this 120 level, kind of all the way dipping down into the 118 range. So it's possible that the market makers may want to kind of take that out before running it back up into this 126 range and basically liquidating all of those shorts. So if we kind of come back and look at the chart, there's a possible scenario where if it doesn't bounce on this 10-day moving average right here, it may come back down to this range before running up. So it would be, for both a technical reason because this is the breakout level and also because of like the liquidity situation. So I am seeing that with Bitcoin. But despite that, again, I still remain bullish. My bias is still to the upside. I still think we're seeing generally good funding rates. Funding rates are generally green, which is showing that people are there's more longing orders than there are shorts open, basically, is what I'm trying to say there. So I think that generally the market is still biased to the upside too. And I think like if you're in good alts like Solana and Ethereum, I think just stay in those and ride out this volatility. I think don't try to trade the necessarily the alt volatility that we're going to be seeing over the next few weeks. If you're in smaller stuff and you really insist on trading it, I think the odds are stacked against you, probably. I think we're going to see a lot of volatility in smaller cap alts. And honestly, you're probably going to lose money if you're trying to trade the swings on these lower cap alts, I think, over the next 2 to 3 weeks, but you do you. So yeah, I think generally I'm still bullish. There's a few reasons to think that maybe momentum might stall for a minute, but I do expect to see a good couple of weeks of upside still. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, and that lines up with what historically has been the trend, right? Historically,
right.
We've seen alt season kind of come alive in November, December time period, kind of aligning with that Bitcoin dominance. Now, a question I've been seeing pop up a lot in our Discord, and just a reminder to you all, join our Discord, join the conversation, stress test your ideas and theories. So one thing I've been seeing pop up a lot is people wondering what to do with their Bitcoin right now. Obviously, it's a good month for Bitcoin dominance. I think it's probably best to hold that, especially through the month. But would you say, kind of as we're approaching the end of the month, is that time to maybe start thinking for those that want to switching out of Bitcoin into some of those higher conviction alts like an ETH or a Solana, or what do you think of that type of idea?
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to just the statistics, odds show that Bitcoin will probably do better than most things for this month. That said, Solana technically has been a little bit outpacing Bitcoin overall. Hold on, I got a chart here. Yeah, well, a little bit. Let's see. So if we look, here's sort of the Solana Bitcoin chart. It's generally been doing better than Bitcoin since the lows back here in June. It's largely been outpacing. Yes, it's down at the moment, but it's still in a larger weekly uptrend. It's still above its bull market support band against Bitcoin. So like, if you were in Solana right now, I would say stay in Solana. Probably you could say the same thing with Ethereum, if I'm not mistaken. It too is in an uptrend. I think I've got it, or back here. Yeah, I mean, largely it's been in a big uptrend since April against Bitcoin here. So if you're in Solana and ETH, stay in Solana and ETH. I think that they've been outpacing Bitcoin and they're going to continue to outpace Bitcoin. That can't be said for most other things. I mean, I'm sure I could dig around in these charts and find a handful of other alts that have been largely outpacing Bitcoin. But like you said, I think just stay in Bitcoin. It's going to continue to do better overall than most alts. So if you want to play the odds, just stay in Bitcoin. And then, yeah, as we get towards the later stages of the month, maybe, the third or fourth week of this month, then look to rotate out. And really just, like I said, just kind of go through and do a lot of comparisons against Bitcoin. Look at charts against Bitcoin pairs and see what's doing better than Bitcoin. Or go to, go to the alt season index on CoinMarketCap. Look at all of the things that have been outpacing Bitcoin over the last 90 days. This is a good way to sort of filter it down. And then you can dig in here and start looking at individual charts and picking ones that have been showing a sustained run. Like you don't want to pick ones that just have kind of blown up. And I think I'm gonna call out Zcash here as a good example of that. Let's look at that chart real quick, because Zcash is one of those that has had like a crazy, now watch, it proves me wrong and it's been on a sustained run, but it blew up here. Like, it's been largely underwhelming. It's been kind of downtrending against Bitcoin for really this entire year. Like, the bull market support band has been going down. Yeah, it poked above a couple of times, but largely it's been trending down and setting lower lows. And then out of nowhere, it blew up and it's up, crazy amount,
Yeah.
honestly. But like, this is what you don't want to look for. So don't automatically look at this list and go, oh, I can just buy any one of these. Like, that doesn't mean you can buy anyone, because you want to make sure it's not just some big rally in the last like 30 days that sort of threw that statistic off. You want to look for something that's been largely outpacing it. I think probably a good one is going to be like BNB, just for example's sake. Of what maybe a better looking chart would be. Yeah, so like, yeah, it went down, but it's been running since, basically July. And it's been just steadily outpacing Bitcoin for way more than 3 months. And so this is kind of more what you want to see. And even something better still that's been, outpacing it for longer. So that's kind of what I would do, is as we get towards the later stages of this month, use that list on CoinMarketCap Alt Season Index to kind of, again, narrow your search field down, and then look in the individual charts against Bitcoin pairs and find things that are doing better than Bitcoin for months on end. And those are probably going to be solid bets to continue to outpace Bitcoin through the end of the year and further. So that's how I would approach that.
Yeah, and also like on the bottom of that chart, I mean, just look at the volume coming in for BNB as compared to Zcash. The BNB is relatively consistent. Obviously, kind of mid-July, you saw a little bit of a spike, but it also remained consistent from that spike to where we are today. Whereas Zcash had virtually no volume, and then over the last 2 or 3 days, you just see it shoot up out of like nowhere. It's just a rocket of a volume candle. So, yeah.
And that's a great point. That's a great point for sure. So absolutely.
What happened there? All right, so let's maybe hit.
It's the privacy narrative. Something. I don't know. It is a privacy coin, and things are going on with governments, and who knows? For all I know, it's whale manipulation. I don't really follow this asset too closely. It doesn't have a ton of trading volume, like you said. It's kind of a unique asset. It's sort of always been there, and it probably isn't going away, but it doesn't have a huge market either, so who knows with that. Anyway, sorry.
That's a dangerous chart. I can't feel you'd be buying in at the top of there if you choose to get in there.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, Francisco actually had a question on Zcash. So Francisco, there goes your answer. All right. So Brent Meeks on the platform wants us to talk about SWI. I haven't heard an update on SWI in a few videos. Looking at taking a significant position in SWI sometime soon. Been trying for over a year to get capital, but now it's finally coming. So Brent wants us to take a look at SWI, let him know what we think of it, and do we think it's a good time to get into SWI now as opposed to maybe something else?
Well, it's funny. We do have this, I've have it highlighted here, this sort of wedge pattern, this coiling action that we've been seeing going on for, over a year now. Basically, it's just been narrowing and narrowing and narrowing, and now it's almost just kind of flat sideways. And if we look at it on this trading alpha chart on the weekly, we can see that effectively it's kind of lost a lot of momentum. This shaded area here indicates what's called a volatility squeeze, meaning there's just been little to no price action, on a week-to-week basis for several weeks now, or even going back months. And so, and also I do want to touch on a report that Jamie Coots put out a few days ago. I think it was earlier this week, that it wasn't negative against SWI, but it was just calling out some objective on-chain metrics, saying that things like developer activity has waned a little bit. A lot of the volumes have waned a bit. We're seeing sort of waning fundamentals in terms of its activity and its ecosystem development and things like that. And this coincides with the very static price action that we're seeing. So You could often say when you do see these volatility squeezes that signals that a price breakout is looming. And we do think, and typically wedge patterns also indicate a breakout. But at the same time, I want to see more going on behind the scenes to kind of drive that momentum. And I'm not seeing that at the moment. So I'm a little cautious. Like, I want to say SWE is going to break out to the upside, and the odds are in its favor that it still will. I mean, we know it's a really good team. We know it's well funded. We know they're continuing to develop and put out new protocols and make amazing stuff over there. Like, they're doing very good. But this price action just honestly gives me caution a little bit. And I would want to wait and see how it resolved before really going in. I think that if you sort of try to front run this breakout and assume that it's going to launch to the upside, you're making a bit of a risky bet in the moment, just based on all of the stuff that's going on right now with this project. So for me, I would look at this and I would say I would feel a lot better about going in with any amount of size if it started trending upwards at least and started setting higher highs and started eclipsing some of these previous weekly closes from back here in July and back here in May. After I saw that, I would feel better about it. And even after it gets above this sort of resistance level here at like right around the $5 level. Now, I know you're kind of giving up a fair bit of upside by waiting for that, but at the same time, it's a much more sure bet. You would have confidence going into it that the trend is likely resuming to the upside. Whereas if you got in right now, it's a bit of a 50-50 gamble. There's a chance that it could come back down and break some of these lower closes too. And, I'd hate to see that. So I feel like because of the sort of neutrality of this chart, I would hold off and wait for the chart to kind of tell you which way it looks like it wants to run before going all in on it. So I think the fact that you're still sitting on the sidelines waiting for that, I think continue to do that and let the chart tell you what it's going to do first.
Yeah, well said. SWE just has, honestly, charts aside, SWE has just absolutely felt like a stable coin for the last few months. It kind of just waffles in between this range that we're seeing, maybe goes up a little bit, then comes down, but it always sticking in between these ranges. So as somebody who's just been holding SWE, it hasn't been action-packed hold, if that helps you, Brett. So
right.
Like Kris said, keep waiting, wait for that confirmation. And if anything, just sit tight there. All right. Next question comes from Dubs, ETH Dub. He'll catch the recording later. Thanks, Dub. But I'm hoping for an update on Pump and SPX and Punk strategy. So yeah, what do we got there?
Well,
let's start with I guess what Pump or SPX.
Let's look at Pump. It's right here. So actually, let me kind of zoom in on Pump since it's got not nearly as much price history. And let's sort of see. Pump is it's funny. It's leveled off too, a bit of a sort of similar wedge pattern to what we saw just a second ago with SWE. Granted, this is on the daily time frame, but I think too, it needs to kind of prove itself. Like, it's definitely broken its uptrend. It's no longer running. I mean, that's objectively clear. So I would say, it came down here and it set a lower high, which isn't necessarily a good look. And then it's basically on its way back down. And so I need to see again, a little bit of a sign from Pump that it wants to continue this uptrend. And so right now it's in the opposite of that. It needs to get back up and basically clear this level and show that it's wanting to set another higher high instead of a lower high. And so right now, I would steer clear of Pump until it gives us a sign. Let me kind of look at it on this chart real quick to see if it kind of tells me anything different. Yeah, similar thing. Like, I don't like that it's basically under its 10-day moving average. It's essentially, yes, it's above its 20-day moving average at the moment, but it's more or less trending with it. So... and its volume is kind of ticked down a bit too. So again, I would hold off on Pump. Just give it a minute to show what it's going to do. Looking at SPX just briefly, SPX looks good to me. I mean, it ran up 50+%. It kind of dipped here back down below this kind of key $1.50 support resistance level, but then immediately engulfed that candle today and is back up 11% on the day right now. So SPX actually looks really good. It's showing a lot of strength. It's got a nice uptick in volume. I like what I'm seeing there. It's sort of broken this downtrend that it was in, and Yeah, I mean, no complaints with that. And then what was the next one?
Punk strategy.
Oh yeah, Punk strategy. That one, so we've had a little bit of a wobble there for sure.
I'll
I
say.
know, Bijan, you're a little bit more dialed in with this project than I am. We know we had some whales sell. We know we've had some people kind of trying to game the system a little bit with it, not necessarily hacking it or breaking it, but just kind of exposing loopholes and things like that. And so I don't know. I don't know what that's ultimately going to do to the price, but at the moment, I'm not looking at it as a buy. I'm looking at it as I need to see this stabilize before I would feel comfortable jumping back in it. And kind of the same thing. We just want to see price reverse and start setting higher highs. And we also want to start seeing some of these punks start selling. That it's buying, that it's collecting. I mean, real quick, what is it? Has it sold anymore? It's still just sold the one. I mean, we know this one was a test, I think you told me, and then it sold the one, but even this was a little bit of manipulation, I guess, if you will, on the part of an early holder, just kind of, again, trying to game the system a little bit. But there hasn't really been any other truly organic sells in terms of all of these punks. So it keeps just accumulating all these punks. I think it's got $3 million plus worth of punks now, and none of them have sold yet. And meanwhile, the floor price of actual punks is well below this, mid to high 50s range. I think it's in the low 50s or right around 50, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be interesting. I still like what they're doing. I still like the idea of it, but the flywheel has yet to fully start flying, and doing what it needs to do. So in the meantime, we've got people just, again, gaming the system a little bit. And I don't know. There is the idea, though, that we've got all these other projects that are kind of stemming from this that are basically giving money to, giving their fee, 1% of their fees to Punk strategy. So we know we've got buying pressure in terms of the token itself coming in from these fees from all these other NFT strategy projects that are going on. There's probably 6 or 8 of them now, or even more. And so there is a mechanism for buying pressure of the token itself outside of whatever's happening with the NFTs. So there are some unique dynamics going on here. But again, I need to see price resume to the upside before I'll feel comfortable with it. So I'm going to keep an eye on it because I still think there's potential here for this to just rip out of nowhere. Certainly if some of these punks do start selling, that's going to be obviously massive, massive buying pressure for the token. And so it's kind of a wait and see. But in the moment, obviously it's iffy. And I continue to say with this asset, because of its unique nature, because of all of the stuff going on with it, this is a very, very small allocation. Don't go into this with any amount of size. This is very, very much a gambling play. This is an experiment that you're betting on. Right. And if you want to bet on this experiment with a little bit of money, knowing that you might lose all of it, then by all means do it. I get it, but you might lose all of it. But also you might 50x it or 100x it. I mean, it could literally, if all these punks sold, I mean, this price is going to be way, way more than it is right now, So there's potential there, but there's also potential for it to go to zero and completely just melt down. And all of these punks, I don't even know what's going to ultimately happen with all these punks in that scenario either. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think you broke that down very well. Punk strategy, like you said, it's a very new idea and it's a new project, so a lot of kinks are still being worked out. I think they have learned from some mistakes. I think maybe launching Goblin strategy with all that momentum maybe wasn't, in hindsight, wasn't the smartest first launch. That probably also hurt them. I think the broader market downturn has hurt them. I think the Bitcoin dominance, like we said, being going to be strong this month, will also hurt them. So probably not something you want to go into with any real size, like Kris was saying. And this was something I kind of saw being one of the downsides of this play when I wrote this note back when I first came across Punk strategy was, if NFT volume starts to wane, Punk floors start coming down, it's going to reflect in the token price as well. So I think for this token to have success and for this ecosystem to have success, NFTs need to have success. You want NFT volumes to be picking up and you need floor prices to be picking up for this to show that. And right now it's been the opposite of that. So we're seeing that come into play. But like Kris said, I think couple of punks sell, I think that flywheel could start activating quite a bit, and we can start seeing some action there. But right now, it's not a great time for NFTs, so an NFT
Yeah.
beta play is not going to be the best time for that either. So yeah, I think that's a lot of factors are going into it here.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, let's take this next question here. No, we actually kind of answered that, Roman, on the beginning. Actually, that's yeah, that we actually had a
I
few questions that we already answered in the beginning with your when you were going over the charts. But sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I got a couple of ones I wanted to call out. If we don't have any questions,
Yeah,
for
let's
sure.
go. Let's dive into some.
Useless is one that has been catching my eye. I had talked about it on the Monday show. I said I was waiting for it to kind of break out above this previous peak right here, and it did. Now, granted, it flagged a DMARC 9 here yesterday, which signals it is overbought. Which, I mean, it's had a big run here. So I remember I even posted in the Discord yesterday. I was like, I want to see how this resolves. And I wake up this morning and it's up 16%. So clearly there's still buying pressure here. We're still seeing volume come up. Now, granted, this is totally a meme coin. I mean, literally, it's useless. Like the whole idea behind it is it's stupid. It's useless. It's nothing. So you're buying speculation, but clearly there is a bid for it in this moment. So, and we know it can wane. Obviously, we saw it correct heavily from this peak back here in July, but it broke out of its structure and it's clearly got a bid at the moment. So this could be a fun little short-term play. I don't know how much more it's got in the tank, but I do like the fact that it came out of this breakout level and just kept going. So that one's caught my eye in the moment. Another one that I wanted to quickly touch on was Aster. A bit of the opposite. I was looking at stuff on the weekly time frame, and I know Aster's brand new, but this was just a bit stark for me. In that, we have these huge weekly 2 up candles, and then immediately the volume on the third week is lower than the first week, and the volume this week is even half of that still. And yes, it is up on the week technically, which actually not a lot of stuff can say right now, but we can see that this is starting to look like a classic kind of rollover pattern. The 3 weeks in a row have closed lower, than each other. And so I would say I would just want to caution with Aster right now. I know there's a lot of attention on this project, but this is, I'm not going to be surprised if we see this just kind of start to roll over like this and roll back down. So be cautious on Aster. And then finally, Mantle. Mantle's another one that's been really interesting. So Mantle's like a layer 2, and it's just been killing everything. In fact, I think it was back, if I'm not mistaken, going back to this altcoin season index, well, Aster's up at the top, but Mantle's right here, like almost, right near the top too. And so I've been kind of digging in on this. It's an interesting project. I do think it's a little bit overbought right now, but man, has it been just blowing everything away since July. And it's one of the better performing assets, in the last 90 days, like I said. So I think it's overbought in the moment, but if it kind of comes back down to these, especially the 10 or the 20 day, it could be a good short-term play also. Very similar to Useless in that it's a bit speculative, and I wouldn't necessarily go into it with a lot of size. But if we're looking for trades, trading the market kind of thing, these two jumped out at me as potential good buys in this current environment that we're in.
These two being Useless and Mantle.
Useless and Mantle, yeah. And then lastly, real quick, I did want to kind of circle back to BNB. BNB has been a very good buy, but BNB looks way overheated at the moment. We're starting to see some it's got a DMARC 9, it's got a bullish divergence here. So I think BNB needs to, again, come back to earth a little bit. It needs to reset back to its moving averages, which we can see it's very well deviated from them. But I do think that if we do get a reset here, this could also be a good buy going forward, but I would wait for a correction first on this. I like BNB though.
Question for you, because we're coming up on time. So for those people that are holding dry powder right now, or kind of waiting to deploy something, what would you suggest to them? Is it do we buy Bitcoin and ride this Bitcoin dominance before maybe looking to make a play further down the risk curve in towards the end of October? Or would you maybe say wait a little bit for Bitcoin dominance to wane and try and maybe front run some of these alts with that dry powder?
I would definitely get in now because Bitcoin could run. I mean, Bitcoin could go to 150 or something in the next couple of weeks. I'm not saying it will, but it very well could, And so I don't think anybody should be sitting on the sidelines waiting for much of anything right now. At the very least, you should be in Bitcoin at minimum, because the whole market, I think, is gonna leg up. And so get in Bitcoin. Alternatively, like I said, both Ethereum and Solana have been largely outperforming Bitcoin for the last several months. And I do think that will continue to. Whether they kind of take a dip in the next week or two, I guess, is anybody's guess. But ultimately, I would say get into any one of those three, or divide it up between all three of those. Put a third into each, and get into those and ride those for the next 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, and sort of see where the dust settles at that point, and then go from there.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's a great idea on how to play the next month we have. Certainly should be an exciting month, and we'll be back on Tuesday because Monday is a holiday in the US. So we'll be back for our live TA session in Discord on Tuesday. And of course, we'll be back on Wednesday for Trading the Markets, which is a reminder. This show, of course, is free on platform and on YouTube, or on Twitter. But if you want to get behind the paywall and have access to Kris's reports, Joe Bland's reports, and our longer TA session where we kind of take a longer look into a lot of coins and a lot of your questions, you have to join RV Connect. And of course, you'll also get the monthly AMA with OSF and Mando as part of that. So join us in Connect, join us in Discord. And until then, don't fuck this up. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we will see you again on Tuesday.